I'm ready.
All right, let's see if the microphone works.
Test. Hello? Hello? Am I live? Hey guys, before I get started, I want to tell you how proud I am to be a member of this group. You guys, in my mind's eye, are heroes, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. Thank you very much. On your flyer, it says that I was a commander of an M60. I thought I took the steps to correct that. I never saw an M60. We had M48s left over from Korea until they were replaced in December of '69 by the Sheridan M551. I'll get into that vehicle in detail. I was drafted into the Army in January of 1969. My selective service number is, I can't make this thing work right here. Back in those days, we had some choices. We could either be drafted, we could enlist and get the school of our choice. A lot of people that were drafted went and enlisted for another year, changed their draft status to RA, and get the school of their choice. That was so they, guess what, wouldn't have to go to Vietnam. You know how many of my friends that did that I saw later in Vietnam? All of them. We had a family or college deferment, or you could dodge the draft. You could go to Canada. A lot of people did. I'm not at all in agreement with our president forgiving them for dodging. Boot camp was in Fort Lewis, Washington. It was 13 weeks of hell. That started in what, early February? If you know the weather around the Seattle area, it's miserable there for quite some time. These two clowns with the gas masks up here are two of my friends that we were drafted right off the block. There was 5 of us all together that were buddies back in school. And that's our graduation day from boot camp. Notice the accommodations in the room there on the far left. You'd be sitting there alongside of Joe with your newspaper and taking care of business. That's Mount Rainier on the bottom right. That's a huge mountain if you've never seen it. They say that if Rainier ever blows its top, it could take as many as 1 million people out. I also did advanced infantry training at Fort Lewis, Washington. Now getting to Vietnam, we had a 30-day leave before going overseas. I flew from Travis Air Force Base to Vietnam. I sat back in the Americal Division base camp. That red circle right there is Tam Key. That was the division base camp for Americal Division. Also had, I forget which Marine unit it was. I think it was the 2nd. Pardon me? Somebody know? And then also there was Navy Seabees there. Our field of territory was, you see Da Nang is right here. Da Nang down to Pleiku. So right about in that area is where we were at. 101st Airborne was just above us. They went from the DMZ to Da Nang, and then we did Da Nang to Pleiku. Now, from infantry to armored cavalry, how did I did that? It's about now where you guys should ask me, hey, wait a minute, you've been telling everybody in this room for a couple of years now that you were a tank commander, and yet you showed us that you were basic and advanced infantry training. How did that happen? While I was at the base camp awaiting my assignment to my ultimate infantry company, Hill 29, or Hawk Hill, was overrun by VC sapper battalions, and we were pulling security at that landing zone at that time, and 8 guys were killed and 18 were dusted off. So they find themselves short 26 men for this cavalry unit. So guess what? Lumley, you're going to be in the armored cavalry. But Top, I don't know how to be in the armored cavalry. Well, you're going to learn. It's called on-the-job training. You guys all did that, right? On-the-job training? That's an M113 and a driver shot. There's a 50 caliber machine gun right to his right. The M113 was the workhorse of the cavalry. When we went to the field with Charlie Troop, there were 3 platoons, 10 vehicles, 7 armored personnel carriers, or ACAV. Their nomenclature was either Armored Personnel Carrier, APC, or ACAV, Armored Cavalry Assault Vehicle, depending upon the configuration, how the unit was set up. This right here, you see the guy sitting on top. He's got his foot on his gun shield. You can see the M60 machine gun. So we had 2 M60s as side gunners. The tank commander had a 50 caliber machine gun. And in this exercise right now, we had just changed a torsion bar out, and the guy is tightening the track. So we're getting ready to go back into action again. More M113 in action. This guy on the left here, he's actually stuck. You know, these are amphibious vehicles, unless you're trying to cross through mud, as we're trying to do right there, and he's stuck. We had to pull him out. The center picture, unfortunately, is one of our ACAVs that ran over a landmine, and it flipped and killed the driver and the track commander. The gunners were thrown off to the side. The picture on the far right, you'll see a lot of these pictures where people are doing this. Remember this, the peace symbol? Here we are at war, but everybody's throwing the peace symbol at you. That's me in the driver's cupola, and that's my track commander right there with the peace symbol. I was the driver at that time. We were promoted by attrition. They either went home in a bag, or they finished their time in grade. But once you went from gunner to driver to track commander, that was over the course of time. The guy that's standing giving the peace symbol at that time was my track commander. I was his driver, but we had flipped positions because that day he wanted to drive. He didn't make it home. We were on an assignment working with an engineering company. 2 guys that we ultimately found out were replacing the batteries in a human sensory device. And the lead man tripped a tripwire. The second man passed. The third man was Dale Gronsky, that guy with the peace symbol right there, and he got the blunt of the force in his left side and unfortunately drowned in his own blood. I got hit with a small piece of shrapnel in this shoulder, and yeah, welcome to Vietnam. I stopped at the skipper's tank, and I said, "Skipper, I got a bad feeling about this. What are we doing here?" And he says, "Lumley, you're on a need to know. Get back in rank." Well, when the explosion lit off and Dale Grotsky is dead, I went back to him and I told him, I said, "Skipper, you need to know that the blood of Dale Grotsky is on your hands, because if we knew that we were going to a place that was visited by an engineering company once a week, we would have cut a different trail around the back side of that. There was no need for that to happen at all." We were in the field between 3 to 5 weeks at a time. And here's an example of us going northbound on Highway 1. And this is an NVA soldier here that we wounded. And we're patching him up. And we're also got the Kit Carsons. Everybody know what a Kit Carson is? No? They were VC that turned against the VC and joined us and acted as interpreters in the field. So we've got our Kit Carson interrogating this NVA soldier that's laying there as we're patching him up. This is me burning a VC village. We didn't like the VC very much, not that they liked us. But if we were taking incoming rounds or running over landmines, their homes and residences weren't there after the event. We were glad to do it. Now, here's the cavalry units right here that I'm familiar with. The two bottom pictures in black and white are us working with the infantry quite a bit, even Marines. The unit that was in our base camp, quite often we took the Marines to their staging point for their mission. So the two bottom pictures are examples of us working with the infantry companies. The picture on the right is an M48. That is a Korean vehicle. Yeah, I want to tell you one specific story about an M48 that we were with. We were crossing a rice paddy, and in the monsoon, the rain's coming out of the sky sideways, and the M48 bellied up in the mud. And after we hooked about 4 or 5 ACAVs behind the M48 to try and unstick it from the mud, pull it back, all we found out that was going to happen is we were getting stuck too. Now I got to tell you, that particular incident right there, I was never ever so scared as I was right then, because I'm on a vehicle that can't move. I'm bellied up in the mud as well. Charlie, all he had to do was step back behind a hedgerow about 50 yards away and crank up a couple of rocket-powered grenades, and we're dust. That's what I was so fearful of, is that we were going to get hit by RPGs. We didn't. Awfully glad to say that. And I think Charlie might have been a little bit smarter than we were at that time, because he was out of the rain under cover. Now the top picture is the M551. This is the Sheridan tank. We got access to the Sheridan, and they replaced the M48s in December of '69. This, my friends, was one of the most powerful pieces of armament that we could have in Vietnam. That's a 152 millimeter cannon. That's this big around. And it shot either an HE round, or one of our favorites was a beehive round. It had 6,000 darts. And when you were in a position where perhaps the jungle was a little too thick to pass, you could put a 1.5 to beehive around in there and blow a hole in the jungle, drive the tank through it. Pretty powerful. It was, that is a 1/4 inch outer skin, and between the outer skin and the hull itself was, guess what? Styrofoam. Why? Sounds kind of odd, doesn't it? Well, what would happen is if that tank took an RPG round, it would burst through that 1/4 skin and then throw its shrapnel into the styrofoam and never make the inside hull of the vehicle. Very, very effective. We were in one particular battle where one of our M551s took 6 RPG rounds and powered out under its own vehicle, its own power. Very, very powerful vehicle. Now, it was also equipped with, guess what? Shillelagh heat-seeking rockets. We could actually shoot down MiGs. Never saw too many MiGs. And they were more fearful that we would shoot down F-4 Phantoms. So they didn't give us the Shillelagh missiles. No, you're not going to get that, guys. There's an M48 and M113. In this particular picture, if you can see, the gunners are not in position. The only person on the vehicles at this particular time is the track commander. And the reason why that is we're in a position outside of a VC village, and the gunners are going in to do their business inside the village. Village life. Couple of depictions of villages, and then this is actually the town of Tam-Key right here outside of our base. I want to tell you something about village life. Every village has a well, and it was hot in Vietnam most of the time. And what we would do is we would go up and circle their well. We would drop a concussion grenade down in the well. The water would come up, we'd soap up, chase another one down the well, the water would come up, and we'd rinse off. Sounds kind of rudimentary, doesn't it? One time, you guys know what an FNG is. That stands for new guy. We had an FNG decide that he was going to come up behind us and drop his concussion grenade down in the well. Well, just momentarily before that, we had dropped ours. We see him come up and he drops his, and we're going, holy Christ. The water's going to come up and it's going to take his grenade with him and blow us to bits. So us veterans, you know, we hit the dust like right now. He didn't know what he was doing. He stood there and got his face blown off. See ya, FNG. Our base camp, this was our rear area. What we would do here is, as I mentioned, we would go out for 3 to 5 weeks before we'd be so riddled with downtime or mechanical failures that we'd be pulling half the company back to the base camp to get repair. There's my M551 right there. You see the right track is broken. Well, what we're doing right there is we're taking off one of the road wheels, replacing the torsion bar suspension, and put it back together again. We could actually do that without the help of the mechanics. The rest of the guys are getting resupplied, putting food and ammunition in the tanks. One of the things that we enjoyed about being in the cavalry over the infantry, they had to carry all their stuff on their back. We got to throw all of our stuff inside the unit. Go around with usually with shirt off, like me right there in the upper right. Notice the soda cans? When they built these hooches for us, they just drove the nails through the corrugated into the cross beams, and if you're tall enough like me, you could come behind it and scrape your head on a nail. So we took and put the soda cans up there on the nail. The upper left-hand picture is three of my buddies at the base camp looking out at the airstrip, C-130s, F-4 Phantoms, even F-104s. We had a few. We would watch them take off. The F-4 was a lot of fun to watch because it'd get about 1/4 of the way down the runway, and then he'd kick in his afterburners and light those flames up. It was really spectacular. This is me, the lower left, with my civilian clothes on, and our dog. Our dog was a victim of circumstances. She only had 3 legs. Her name was Bitch. She was a lot of fun. Now here, I'm calling this Making Friends. This is again in the base camp right here. A couple of my buddies on the far left, a guy, Howie Torres from New York, in the center with me. And I like this picture. I'm kind of proud of it. That's a little boy that unfortunately was a victim of the war. His parents were killed in the war, and so we took him on, him and his brother. We gave him an American name. He goes by Larry. And but yeah, we fed them and clothed them, and they were very appreciative. They were a lot of fun too. We taught them English, and we played games with them, and ball, and you name it. You know, they were just like regular kids. Just for fun, I was married. I didn't tell you guys that. I got married when I was in advanced infantry training. And so I had an opportunity to meet with my wife in Hawaii. That's me and her. Guys, put your eyes back in your head. She's a 19-year-old girl, okay? We had fun. It sure went by fast though, and I got to tell you that one of the hardest things for me to do after hooking up with her for a week was get back on an airplane to Vietnam. As you can imagine. More fun again in the base camp when we're getting back combat ready. We could go to the beach and body surf. Here's an example of a USO show to help boost our morale. That was an Australian company there, so we got an opportunity to look at round-eyed white girls. They were beautiful. Now coming home, I flew out of McChord Air Force Base in Washington on a Continental Airlines 707. That was from McChord Air Force Base, Washington to San Francisco. I was living in the Bay Area at the time. So this was really kind of odd. Let me take you back one flight before this one, and that was the one that lifted off out of Vietnam, headed for McChord. Full airplane. There was silence until that airplane got off the ground and up far enough that we figured we're out of harm's way. The RPG can't hit us this high. And everybody just exploded. Just enraged with happiness that we were finally had this portion of our life behind us. In my civilian life, I was 30 years in commercial sales in 9 western states. I retired in 2011. After retirement, I vowed to help other veterans. I'm active in 5 veterans groups, this being one of them, of course. Then an active duty Marine Adoption Committee with City of Mission Viejo will go down and feed Marines from time to time. I didn't tell you, when I first got to my unit, I was in no way, shape, or form in a hurry to start my personal version of this war. But Charlie had a different opinion. On my day 2 in the field, we were coming down off of a plateau and into a valley, and we're taking small arms fire. And remember, radios back in those days are about this big. They're huge. And my company commander raised his radio up like this, and he's looking around. He's trying to reach his lieutenants to try and get some intelligence on where this small arms fire is coming from. Well, Charlie, being industrious as he is, sees that this guy with the radio must be somebody important. So he launches an RPG at the commander's track and takes the commander and his track commander out, killed them, and I got a piece of shrapnel. I was in the next vehicle over, so the overspray came over and hit me, and that was Purple Heart number 2. Now, reflections. Was it worth the cost? You know, each and every one of us in here have had this conversation before. What were we doing there? What did we get out of it? You know, I can send you up to Westminster or Garden Grove into the Vietnamese communities up there and have them tell you that they appreciate what we did for them. That was good. What could have been different? You know, we're military people in here. We know how it could have been different. We could have gone online from the Mekong Delta and pointed our armaments north and killed everything that was in our way. We could have probably ended that war in 6 months had we had our way. But it got too political, didn't it? Yeah. It certainly did. What did I learn? Boy, how much time do you have? I know that I was successful in business, and I probably wouldn't have been had I not had my Army background behind me. I learned about how to communicate. I learned how to manage people, and it worked for me. Thanks, guys, for watching. Questions?
How thick was the armor around the APC?
The APC was 3 inches of aluminum.
All around?
Yes.
So could an RPG penetrate that?
They sure could. They could go through 3 inches of steel, let alone 3 inches of aluminum. Yeah, a lot of times what would happen, what would be the crisis for an RPG into an APC or an ACAV is once it bursts through the exterior, now you've got ammunition all over the floor of the tank and it goes off. Next question?
During my short time in service, I never ever rode in any type of armored vehicle, so I'm very curious to know that when you're driving or riding in a tank or an armored vehicle, was it so noisy that you were suffering hearing loss, or did the designers and builders take care of that and it wasn't that noisy?
The M113 was powered by a diesel V6 300 horsepower, and it was enclosed by that 3 inches of aluminum all the way around it. So it wasn't really too loud. The M551 had a larger version of that engine, and it was in the rear of the vehicle, so it was behind you. Not too loud.
So you didn't have any hearing protection and given to you at all when you were operating these vehicles?
I have hearing problems now, but it's mostly because my particular track, my ACAV, was Charlie 3.8. 8 series had a 81 millimeter help me, 81 millimeter mortar, thank you, in the back of the vehicle. So my hearing problems come from igniting that 81. Anybody else?
Yeah, so did you keep in contact with any of the men or women that you served with when you were over in Vietnam or in the service?
Thank you. Glad you asked that. Bob Hoffman lives in a little town called Ephrata, Pennsylvania. And he came home with malaria and therefore didn't have any of his stuff to go back with him. So what we do, him and I, every 3 to 5 years, he'll come out to see me or I'll go out to see him. My bush cap is either with me or with him. He comes out, he takes my bush hat home. Yeah, dear friend. And my wife has become good friends with his wife, and they're just phenomenal people. You know, one of the things that we did with them, we were back there a few years ago, and it was the first time that we had the opportunity to visit Gettysburg. Thank you, hon. Gettysburg was a phenomenal sight. You guys may know that there was as many people killed, Americans killed, in 3 days of Gettysburg as there was in 10 years of Vietnam. It was, what a sight to see. Anybody else?
Just wait, one more quick question. When you said you lived in San Francisco, or you got stationed in San Francisco when you came back?
I was born in San Francisco, raised on the peninsula side of the bay.
Okay.
I have a question.
Dennis, one of the reasons you had the tank got sunk down in the mud, Vietnam had a very crust of about 5 feet, breaks that crust down, and the only way to get the tank out, I would hook up 2 bulldozers to it, and it wouldn't move. We had to tunnel under the tank and break the suction out.
Wow.
And then we could pull the tank out. Well, no wonder you had problems.
And, you know, I didn't take the opportunity to tell you how we got that tank unstuck. The next day, the rain cleared, and we had a Sikorsky Sky Crane come in. Now, the Sky Crane doesn't have the lift capacity to lift that M48 all the way out of the ground, but it did get it light enough that, guess what, we were able to track out of there. So it was quite something to see.
Dennis, a question to follow up. Why were the men sitting on the top of the armored personnel carriers rather than inside?
Because of heat. Yeah, it was hot down inside there. Anybody else?
You didn't have any M88 retrieval vehicles?
I didn't hear that.
You didn't have any M88 retrieval vehicles for your track unit?
I don't know what that is.
They're great big tractors. You normally pull out M60s and 48s, nothing like that?
No.
They're pretty heavy, I think.
No, I don't know of that. Lucky?
How many rounds that cannon fire per minute?
How many rounds per minute?
Well, the loading of the cannon was done by 2 men, a loader and a gunner. And as fast as they could load that thing was probably a minute, shoot it and then reload it, about a minute. Yes, sir. Jim?
You want to explain to them that when you fire a 5.51 152 millimeter gun, the road wheels come 12 inches off the ground?
Yeah, that was quite a recoil. It was, yeah, it did. It lifted the wheels, the front wheels off the ground.
Yeah, true, good Fort Bragg, Kansas, so I know those little things.
Yeah, very true. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Did you use the 113s more as troop carriers or as armored vehicles?
They were primarily an armored vehicle. Yeah, you had either, depending upon the M113, how it was configured, it was either an APC, Armored Personnel Carrier, or an ACAV, Armored Cavalry Assault Vehicle. And we were fully loaded. We were an assault vehicle. Very rarely did we ever carry anybody, into combat. It was done periodically, but those were assault vehicles. Yes, sir. Anybody else?
1 second.
Not a question, but a comment. A lot of questions you got on the 551. Most people here don't realize the 551 was designed to be airdropped. So it's a very light vehicle, probably the lightest armored vehicle other than an APC.
I missed that. You're right. Thank you. Yes, sir.
You said one of the APCs got upended. Did it have a escape hatch at the bottom?
No, it did not. No, you had to go up through the top. Yes.
The flechettes, how often did you use them?
The flechette rounds? When we went into the field, almost every day was some kind of action. It might have been a couple of VC, playing sniper, or it might have been an NVA company that we went after. The flechette was used primarily when we had a number of people that we could shoot a broad, wide angle at.
I used to make them.
Pardon me?
I used to make them.
Oh, did you? Yeah, it's quite a weapon. Yes, sir.
How big are the flechettes?
They're inch and an eighth. I was going to say this long. That's about an inch and an eighth, and it's got tail fins on it. Got tail fins on it.
When you rolled into combat, did you draw, when you went in, did you draw attention more than, so were you like a target when you went in? Not on purpose, but did it draw more towards you because you were a higher value target because it was a armored personnel carrier?
I wanted to address that. Thank you very much for reminding me. When we went into the field, we were 7 APCs and 3 tanks times 3 platoons per company. So we were going into the field with 30 vehicles, each one following directly behind it, because if the guy up front didn't hit a landmine, chances are you wouldn't either. There was no element of surprise. It didn't happen. When you're with 30 tracked vehicles, they're hearing you coming a mile away. And they had the luxury of setting up and waiting for us with whatever it was that they were going to throw at us. They shouldn't do that, because if they were going to throw something at us, we were going to get them back. We never lost a battle.
Did you have any kind of mine detection?
No. No, we went out there in a couple of areas with a bayonet, and poked the ground looking for something, but no.
How about everybody, I always tell people, so I tell people, say, well, I told somebody thank you, and they told me not to thank me because I wasn't infantry, right? And I said, well, you tell that guy, an old Marine, I know I'm not as old as you guys, but an old Marine told him to shut up and accept the thanks, because 95% of the military supports the 5% that's the tip of the spear, right? So how were you guys supported in the field when you were out there 5 and 6, 5 weeks or whatever? Did they run out to you, or what were the supply lines to keep you guys taken care of? Was it drops? What the logistics look like?
Thank you. We would get hot meals flown into us every other day by chopper, and every other day would come and we would have a nice fresh meal. The rest of the time it was, sea rations. You've seen a few pictures of me and how skinny I was at that time. We didn't eat very well on sea rations.
What about fuel and stuff? You guys just had enough that you...
Sometimes they would fly in fuel blivets, dump them. The CH-46s could carry fuel blivets, or lift fuel blivets.
So you did have your support.
We sure did.
Yes.
Yeah, we
When you went out in convoy, you had how many vehicles?
30.
Okay, but did you have like a loach, or did you have something else for your support?
It depending upon the situation, you know, and the terrain. We would have loaches, we would have Hueys, we would have Cobras, we would have F-4 Phantoms. You know, one of my favorite things is to collect a body count after an F-4 Phantom drops napalm. And sometimes the Stars and Stripes people would ride with us. And those guys couldn't count. You know, we might be in a situation where we dropped 4 enemy and they'd put it in the paper that it was 14. They couldn't count. Yes, sir.
When you were in Vietnam or before, either one, did you study or company commanders brief you on a long, sad history France had in using tanks in French Indochina? Did you learn from their disastrous mistakes, or did you learn that at all?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the nature of your question.
So he was asking, so France with the tanks and everything, when they went in, you know, they got their butts kicked or they incorrectly used the armor. Did your commanders take any of that stuff, or we just used our own tactics? How did that look? Did it look like, did it change from what they used versus what we used when we went in to attack?
I'm still a little perplexed.
Okay, yeah.
All right, we have time for one more question.
Anybody else?
A big round of applause for